Raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Raising Cain Show. Tonight, we dive deep into a topic that's not just crucial to our state's economy, but also to our heritage and future: agriculture. You might think of West Virginia and picture our stunning landscapes, but did you know that those rolling hills and lush valleys are also the backbone of a thriving agricultural industry? From farm to table dining experiences to agricultural tourism that's putting West Virginia on the map, the role of farming in our state is more important than ever. But with growth comes challenges. Urbanization, environmental pressures, and regulatory hurdles are squeezing our farmers, threatening the very fabric of rural life. So, how do we balance growth with sustainability? How do we protect our agricultural lands while promoting innovation and modern farming practices? Tonight, we have the perfect guest to help us explore these questions. Kent Leonhardt, West Virginia's Commissioner of Agriculture, is here with us with a career spanning from the Marine Corps to public service. And as a lifelong farmer himself, Kent has a unique perspective on the pressures and potentials of agriculture in our state. We're thrilled to have him here to share his insights on everything from the impact of federal regulations to the future of agri-tourism in West Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us tonight is someone who truly embodies the spirit of West Virginia. Kent Leonhardt began serving our state in 2014 as a state senator and has been the West Virginia Commissioner of Agriculture since 2016. He's a man of many hats: a decorated Marine Corps veteran, a wildlife manager, a business leader, and above all, a dedicated farmer. Kent bought an abandoned farm near Blacksville in 1982 and turned it into a thriving operation, raising sheep, cattle, and goats. Along with his wife, Shirley, he has made significant contributions to our local agricultural community. Kent's academic background is impressive, holding a bachelor's degree in wildlife management and a master's in business management. He's a member of the Monongalia County Farm Bureau, the past president of the Southern Association of State Departments of Agriculture, and serves on the board of Operation Welcome Home, among other roles. Tonight, we'll delve into his experiences, his vision for the future of agriculture in West Virginia, and discuss critical issues like the Food Safety Modernization Act and its impact on farmers, as well as the recent Supreme Court ruling on the Chevron deference doctrine and how it changes things. We'll also talk about the implications of mRNA vaccine developments for livestock and what that means for consumers. Get ready for an insightful and compelling discussion about the heart of West Virginia's economy, agriculture. Welcome to the show, Kent.
It's great to be here, Nate. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good
Thanks
to see
for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. Agriculture's it's something that a lot of people outside of West Virginia, in a lot of these heavily populated areas may not really think much about, but it has such an important role in our lives, especially when you consider that we can't live without food. So I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion tonight. And we've got a lot of stuff to cover. I know there's some really important things that that you want to get into, and we're going to definitely cover those as well. And but I also have some questions for you, especially in light of the this recent Chevron deference ruling and what that might mean. So with that, let's jump right in. Kent, I kind of gave a brief overview of your background and career and all of that, but is there any personal stories from your farming experience, with your wife Shirley in Blacksville that you'd like to share, about what has changed in your life since getting back to farming after your time in the Marine Corps?
Well, it's kind of interesting. You go from a Marine Corps career. I was an intelligence officer. You and I did some. Our paths didn't cross, but we did some similar things over the years, and that gives you a unique perspective on how people react. And I worked a lot in the terrorism world, and so I got a unique perspective on how we keep our food safe and things of that nature. When I first took office, I hired a new state veterinarian. We didn't have one. We had one veterinarian on staff. We now have 5. We only had one veterinarian on staff, and that individual didn't want to be called a state veterinarian. So we did a national search, and we brought in a former assistant state veterinarian from Florida. And my first directive is make sure that we have our emergency action plans for foreign animal diseases totally in place. In fact, we're going to do a veterinary offload tomorrow. I'm going to head up to our donated.
I think your sound cut out a little bit there.
Animal disease. Yeah, I might, if we stop the camera, I might do a little better. I'm on Starlink at the farm.
I'm changing networks. It might be on my end. Same here.
Oh, okay.
So if you're experiencing a problem, I probably am as well.
Okay.
So, but I just switched over. I've got a network that's got.
We're about 3.5 hours, so they've got to line up a little bit.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so you were saying
that sounds a little bit better. It does sound a little bit. Okay, we'll keep on rolling here then. So, we want to make sure that if we have a foreign animal disease, it's the state of West Virginia. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We've been very lucky since I've been commissioner, like with the avian influenza that decimated poultry flocks all over the country and caused our egg prices to rise, and shortages of fresh chicken to consumers. West Virginia, we've only had one backyard flock, and we contained that extremely well. And it's all about biosecurity. I mean, we preach that and we teach that, but we want to delay and prevent as much as possible. There's a lot of other things on the horizon in foreign animal disease. There's African swine.
I think we're having a little bit of a technical problem here. Kent, you still with me? Hold on, folks. Just bear with me here. We'll bring Kent back up. He's going to log back in here. Look, folks, I'm going to just comment on this for a little bit because it's kind of interesting. When you think of agriculture, typically most people don't think about the implications of things like cybersecurity or bioweapons, or, we may think of disease control, but we're not just fighting the natural course of diseases and things like that. I'm going to bring Kent back up here. There we go, Kent. Can you hear me?
You got me now, Nate?
I got you. I was just getting ready to break into talking about how people don't generally think about agriculture and think about technology, or think about things like cybersecurity or bioweapons, or biosecurity, as you were mentioning. You had a background as an intelligence.
Yeah, it's a lot in biosecurity, cybersecurity, and we can get into it. Yeah, agriculture is attacked probably on the cybersecurity world almost more than any other industry because people have to eat 3 times a day. And,
That's right.
People take it for granted. But when something happens, all hell can break loose.
Yeah, and we're going to
Do I
talk a
still
little bit
have
about
you?
that. Yep, you still do. We're going to talk a little bit about that later in the show too. I want to get into a couple of cases that I've been involved with. Oh no. Okay, you still there?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
fine.
I turned my camera off. Hopefully that gives us a little bit more streaming power.
Yeah, that's probably fine.
Yeah. I
Also,
don't know what the audience all caught on the biosecurity, but I feel comfortable our emergency action plans are in place. And if a foreign animal disease comes in, and we've actually received some national attention on that as well. And other states are starting to copy what we're doing.
That's great. That's great. Tell me a little bit about it's interesting because, when you think about things like biosecurity, we're dealing with not just the natural course of disease.
You're breaking up.
Oh, we're dealing with not only the natural course of disease and viruses and things like that, but we're also dealing with things such as, intentional poisoning of our whether it's the food stocks for our animals, or it could be the intentional release of viruses and things like that. I mean, there are doomsday scenarios that I'm sure you're aware of as a former intelligence officer. I know for me, being part of NSA, I was a Marine civilian with Marfor Cyber, and I was detached to the NSA for national missions. So we were basically going after hackers that were trying to hack into our national critical infrastructure, which included our agriculture community. And so I know these threats are real, and the severity of them, is pretty significant. In fact, I remember years ago,
Right.
Wondering why the heck do we subsidize farms and things like that. And then I learned that where that came about was it came about as a result of a period of time in America where we actually had a potential of famine. Yeah. And so they wanted to make sure that we had food security, because food security
you're not coming in very clear, Nate.
How's that? Is that better? Can you hear me okay?
That's a little better.
Okay. Kent, if you have a landline,
we're having a very bad connection. There's some storms brewing in the area.
There are. We have a cold front moving in, which is in extreme heat. So we're likely going to see some tornadoes, I think, out of this. But do you have a landline that you can maybe call back in with? Hold on, folks. I'm going to try to get him on a landline because I think this is an important topic and we want to definitely, get on this. All right, let's see here. Kent, can you hear me? There we go.
Now I can hear you. We've got storms in the area, hoping for some rain because we've got a drought going on.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. In fact, I don't think this is the first time I've ever seen my grass actually looking, like it does when I used to live in California. So it's highly unusual. It's usually very green here. But so
right.
Ken,
we're getting ready to. We've got to have some rain soon.
Yes, Ken. If you lose connection again. If you have a house line, a landline, there may be a way for you to call in. If you look at the link that was sent to you.
Yes, I do.
Okay. See if there's a way that you can call back in on a landline. I think that will stop the disruption, because I don't think it's happening on my end out here. I think it's happening on your end.
All right. Okay. I'll go look at that, and you go ahead and entertain your guests.
All right. No problem. So, folks, so we'll get back to Kent as soon as he comes back in. But I want to just share with you guys what I learned. There was a case a couple of years ago where there was a farm. This was a dairy farm that was out in Texas, and one of the things that this was a huge story because there were like 1,500 head of cattle that were at this farm. It was a dairy farm. They produced things like chocolate milk, and other, and cheese and other food products. So it was not just a dairy farm, but it was also a food manufacturing, farm. And there was a massive fire that killed all of their cattle. And some of you guys actually may remember that. And it was a pretty terrible story. About 1,500 cattle that basically burning up alive. Well, it's interesting because I, as a cybersecurity expert and somebody who's worked on national critical infrastructure, something didn't sit right with me on this, and so I decided just to do some investigating on my own on this, and I went and looked up this farm, and it turns out my suspicions were correct that there had been this farm had gone through a massive underhaul and had gone completely automated, which was great for manufacturing, food production. But the problem is like anything, cybersecurity. Once you add automation, you're adding vectors to where you can be hacked and certain things can go wrong. So that was one of the things that I saw happen there, and I decided to look and see if there was what information I could find. Well, I found an expose in this agriculture magazine that was basically highlighting this farm the year prior. And in there, they had all kinds of pictures of their equipment. They showed the model and the make. And I mean, this is a hacker's, a hacker's dream, right? Because they knew exactly what kind of equipment they were. That means they can go look up and find out what vulnerabilities. And this farm, one of the things that they had there was they had an interesting system for power generation, where they had these automated robots that would go behind the cows that were being milked, and it would scoop up their dung, and then it would compact that and use it to burn methane for fuel and create electricity. So the whole farm was pretty much running on its own power. And but unfortunately, there was a known vulnerability, and you'll never probably see this in the news, but I mean, this was my own investigation on my own. But there were known vulnerabilities with those machines that could allow for a remote takeover. And the likelihood is, in a lot of these, what they call industrial control systems or SCADA, there's oftentimes problems in where they don't have, they don't have it's not easy to just patch it. You basically have to plug something in. You have to, it's a complicated process. Usually requires a technician to come out and do a firmware upgrade to install these types of patches. So oftentimes what happens is, in those scenarios, these systems don't get patched and they become vulnerable. And so we're seeing it today. We're seeing all sorts of things getting hacked that we never even thought about as being cybersecurity risks. But that is a problem. And of course, as we saw from the COVID leak, the lab leak, the likelihood of there being viruses and maybe even biological weapons that are designed to wipe out somebody's food supply leaking from a spot, there's a very good possibility that can happen. So it's something that we have to be very careful and be thoughtful of. And and I think that that's just one example when it comes to cybersecurity that I have great concerns about in terms of our food security and our food safety. So I was just Kent, while you were away, I was just basically letting folks know about something that I discovered in my own investigations, and that was there was a farm in Texas that had 1,500 head of cattle that burned up. I think it was either a year ago or a couple years ago, and it was a massive fire. But I found an article that an expose that basically was highlighting this farm a year earlier about how they had gone complete automation and that they were actually burning methane, and they were running on, basically they had their own methane power generation going on from the dung that was being scooped up behind these cows. So it's very sophisticated stuff. But as I was mentioning to folks, that oftentimes when you're dealing with industrial control systems or SCADA systems, it's not like your computer where it just automatically goes and patches and updates. oftentimes it requires a technician to get out there and plug something in to do the update. And so oftentimes things don't get patched. And in this article, they had exposed pictures of all their equipment, of the models, the makes, which is a hacker's dream, because now they know where to look and try to find, vectors to get in. And I can't prove it, but I suspect that there may have been some foul play in that situation with an outside attack, through cyber. So, and I was mentioning that, as we know, the lab leak that we had, with COVID-19, many of these countries are developing biological weapons, some of which are intended to wipe out food supplies. And so, if a basically COVID-19, which I think we can all agree was a biological weapon, if that could leak from a lab, the likelihood of something like, something that could harm our food supply could also leak. And so these are, of course, major concerns that we have.
Yes, you're right, Nate. There's things that happen organically, and there's things that happen intentionally, and we've got to be on the lookout for all of them. That's why our laboratories are so important, and our testings. We're part of the National Food Safety Network. And we oftentimes at the West Virginia Department of Agriculture, if we remember the baby formula scare recently, we were one of 3 laboratories in the nation that could test the full spectrum of the baby formula, and we're the only ones that actually found the link. So I'm very proud of the staff at the Department of Agriculture in West Virginia. We've developed some awesome capabilities that are not just benefiting West Virginians, but are benefiting the nation as a whole. And we want to continue to build on that and be a leader in food safety, because there was a time when if you look at the flag in West Virginia, there's a farmer and a miner, and 93% of the citizens were actually farming, and we're down to 3 to 4% of our citizens farming. And when you go to the grocery store, you expect that food to be safe. You have an expectation. Then you've got lawyers that are going to sue if it's not safe. There's so many variables that go into why things are set up the way they are. And sometimes we go overboard on regulations, and sometimes we maybe don't go far enough. But we have to make sure that we do reasonable regulations so that the population, when they go to the store, they can go ahead and feel secure of the food that they're buying. Then when something happens like COVID hits and the grocery stores start to get a little bit empty, they go, what's the ag commissioner doing? Well, the food was there. The supply chain was the problem. The food had already been growing. When everybody stayed home, 30% of the people eat at restaurants or in institutions right now on a daily basis. So when everybody had to stay home and the schools closed, the bulk food that was in packaging for bulk was not in the individual or family size packaging that the grocery store needed. So when you had 30% more of the population going to the grocery store buying food. So that's what created the shortage. The industry had to retool rapidly to get that in case. But then we also had places where slaughter facilities were shut down because of an outbreak of COVID. Fortunately, none of that happened in West Virginia. We were able to keep all our facilities open. But when that shuts down, and then the equipment's set up to handle a 240 to 300 pound hog, and it's 30, 40 days go long, and the farmer contracted to send there. Now the pig's bigger, the hog's bigger than 300 pounds, can't go through. The farmer has no choice but to euthanize. And that started to compound the additional problem. In West Virginia, we brought 4,000 extra hogs in, and we made sure they were safe. And they went right to slaughter, and that kind of helped relieve some of the shortages.
Yeah, that's near and dear to my heart. I can't go without bacon. So, but I got to tell you, these issues, people don't realize all that is going on in the background, to get this food to the table. I think most people just kind of take it for granted. One of the things that I want to move on a little bit to another topic that you had brought up in with my producer, and that is agriculture tourism. Now, I've never heard the term, so I'm really curious. I want you to school me on this. What is agritourism? And give me some examples of that and what's going on in West Virginia regarding it.
Well, let's talk about tourism in general. First off, the things that attracts people to West Virginia is our beautiful forests and our rivers. And the Department of Agriculture is very much involved. The responsibility of the Department of Agriculture is for forest health. Imagine what the New River Gorge National Park would ever been designated if the river was polluted and the forests were dead from what we now call the spongy moth. It used to be the gypsy moth that had devastated all the oaks. So the Department of Agriculture is responsible in many areas on keeping our waters clean, particularly in association with the West Virginia Conservation Agency, which I chair the State Conservation Committee, and forest health. Now, we don't have forestry at the Department of Ag, but forest health falls under the Department of Agriculture. So you can imagine, the slowing the spread, setting out traps, looking for this critter and stopping them before it becomes too widespread. Right now, over the Eastern Panhandle, we're battling the spotted lanternfly.
I was just going to bring that up. They're destroying my grapevines right now.
They're terrible on grapevines. You can spray them if you want to stay organic. You got to pick them off and smash them. I'm trying to get somebody to develop a sticky. Go ahead.
I've been spraying a spray bottle with soapy water in it and hoping that might do the trick. And it seems to have slowed them down, but it's certainly not it's not a total solution.
No, they'll be there, but they'll be gone in a couple of weeks, and then they'll pop up somewhere else. It's kind of an interesting critter. Some people get excited about studying it. I guess the entomologists do, but for us in agriculture and the everyday homeowner, we don't want to see those things around. But we also do the phytoplankton.
And I don't know what eats them.
They are an invasive species.
And my understanding is they came from China. So
they did come from China. And guess what? They live on the tree of heaven, which is their host. And the tree of heaven came from China before the spotted lanternfly.
Yes, I hate those trees because every time I try to pull them up, for one, they're dang near impossible to get out of the ground, but also they have something on them that irritates the skin and gives you that psoriasis type thing.
Well, cut them down and the cows will eat the leaves in a drought situation. So, and that's how I kind of control them. Yeah. And then but they do have those shoots and they'll grow right back from the stump unless you keep them knocked back. And then you'll see them on the walnut trees because I think the spotted lanternfly is visual and he's got those. And the leaves look like the tree of heaven leaves. So it attracts the spotted lanternfly. But we can go into science all day long and you've got more topics you want to discuss. But
tell me a little bit more about
keeping our forests beautiful. Yeah, I'm going to move into that. So keeping our forests beautiful and our streams healthy to attract people. But we want people to stay when they come to West Virginia. We want to give them other things that they want to do and extend their stay. So farm-to-table dinners have become very popular. We started them in our state parks. Anybody on the podcast, go to the state park website and find out about the farm-to-table dinners they have. They're wonderful. I try to attend as many as I can every year. But then we also have things like pumpkin mazes. In Cerrito, West Virginia, there's a pumpkin house, and one of our delegates, he designs and uses school kids, and they carve something like 3,000 pumpkins, and they're all over the house during this one weekend before Halloween, and they're set to lights and they flash, and they're absolutely beautiful. I've seen wedding proposals, "Will you marry me?" carved in the pumpkins at this pumpkin house. So everybody needs to go down to Cerrito at the last weekend in October and see the pumpkin house. But, you know, there's many, many more things that we do. Corn mazes, a lot of things that the kids will get involved in.
One thing
you can get lost in the cornfield.
Yep. One thing I want to mention for folks that are listening, you can the West Virginia State Parks website is wvstateparks.com, and I would definitely encourage people to go to that. They have a things to do section there and deals, and so you can get discounts and you can find out. You know, you can get it's where you can find out about renting cabins and campgrounds, and all of that kind of information can be found there. Another thing too that I want to recommend to people, and I'll hold this up right here. I subscribed to the Market Bulletin so that I could find out, you know, more about agriculture, because when I was running for Congress, I didn't really know anything about it. And I found this to be really an amazing little publication that comes out once a month. And there's all kinds of really interesting information in here. And oftentimes you'll see events that are going on in there. And I would really recommend, it doesn't cost you anything. So I would definitely recommend that people check that out. And you guys can go to agriculture.wv.gov is where you can go to, and you can sign up for that there. It's called the Market Bulletin, but I would definitely recommend that. So Kent, tell me about the current trends and statistics that are going on in regards to the growth of our agriculture sector here in West Virginia. What are we seeing that's growing?
We're starting to get tinny again. We were doing great for a while.
What successes are we having right now in our agriculture sector? Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay.
It was loading on my side.
I was asking what are the current trends, growth trends in West Virginia agriculture sector, and what are the things that we're seeing that we're doing, that we're doing successfully?
Well, one thing we're doing successfully, which I'm very proud of, is our maple syrup production. That's more than doubled, and we've got a lot more sugar houses in the state of West Virginia. We've partnered with Future Generations out of Pendleton County for educating a lot of the small farms. It's an additional income source. Some are just selling the sap to other folks that are actually producers that are producing the maple syrup. We sell. We helped establish the Maple Syrup Producers Association in the state of West Virginia. They come on down to the state fair starting August 8th, and in the country store they sell maple cotton candy, and it tastes really great. And the proceeds from that go to support the association and the growth of maple syrup in the state of West Virginia. We've got more maple trees than Vermont, and we are closer to one of the largest markets in the South. With reverse osmosis, we've been able to take the moisture out of the sap a lot quicker, and we've become competitive with those northern states that have traditionally produced maple syrup. We've always produced it here in West Virginia, but it takes our sap is a little bit more watery, and it takes a little longer to render it down to the right consistency for syrup. But with reverse osmosis, we can take a lot of that moisture out right away, and so it doesn't take as much cook time and energy to produce that. So, and then we have Maple Days twice a year. You'll find it in the Market Bulletin that you mentioned, and we highlight some sugar houses, and the public's open. It's open to the public to come out and visit and see how maple syrup's produced and watch how the maple syrup flows down the lines. And I've even been able to tap a few maple trees myself. So that's one thing that's doing really well in the state of West Virginia. Our honey production is way up.
Oh, that's great.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you.
And then,
I was going to ask you know, what challenges that we might have. I remember a while back there were some issues with apples, and you know, and I know you did some you know, creative things to help. You know, our we had basically China dumping apples. Can you talk about that a little bit and how international trade sometimes can have you know, impact on our agriculture industry?
yes, you know, when you have processors in the country that can buy concentrate cheaper than buying the fresh apple and processing the fresh apple into juice rather than just mixing the concentrate, it's got to raise a red flag to you. You got to say, what's going on here? And why are they letting all this come in? And a lot of this is actually, you know, a lot of our foreign competitors are subsidized by the government. So it becomes an unfair trade practice. President Trump, I thought, had done a great job in leveling the playing field for a lot of the agricultural community, but I'm not seeing that with the current administration. You know, that's one of the reasons I believe that we've had some of the issues that we have had. I will say this also, but our vegetable production in the state is up and our livestock production is trending up because we're doing more know your farmer, know your food type of things. And that is so very important when you talk about food safety. If you go to the farmers markets, we've tripled those in the last 7 years. When you go there, you get to talk to the farmer, see how the farmer does his practice. What's he growing? Tell him what you're looking for. And he may, if he hears it enough, he may decide to grow it. So you can increase the variety that's at the farmer's market. But it's a matter of the public communicating. You know, my wife and I visited the Morgan County market in Berkeley Springs a couple weekends ago. Wonderful market, a lot of great products there. We really had a good time visiting that one. So I want to encourage everybody to go out and do that. But that's one of the other things that goes to the food security. The more that we do that, the less we have to rely on our food supply coming from somewhere else. You know, we have the capability to produce enough food almost to feed the entire world. But there's always going to be disruptions. Ukraine, for example, nobody anticipated the war with Ukraine, and 13% of the world's calories come out of the Ukraine Valley.
Yeah, the breadbasket of the world, they say.
13% of the world calories. That's a lot.
On that note, I want to just highlight a couple of things that I learned about that. You know, one of the issues is that Russia is the largest producer of fertilizer, and you know, and so fertilizer costs just went skyrocketing after the war started because of our role in you know, funding Ukraine. Russia basically was, you know, essentially not selling us fertilizer or selling it at a very high cost, and so I know that has an impact. I know I've talked to, you know, multiple farmers as I was campaigning, and more than anything, what I was hearing from people was that it's the inputs that go into your farm. It's the fuel, you know, the grain, the fertilizer, things like that they have to buy. That you know, the inflation costs were just killing these guys.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And then the problem is, then you get a time where you've got high input costs, and then you get a drought like we're potentially experiencing, and your crop yield is down, but your input cost, it costs the same to put that corn in the field and generate 150 bushels an acre or 100 bushels an acre. So obviously you want to maximize. And if the weather can be a variable in that, and that's an uncertainty that agriculture and farmers face on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely. One of the questions that I had for you is when we think about like technology and some of the, you know, newer practices in farming and you know, running our farms and our ranches, Are there new techniques that are coming out? Are there new technology that's making it easier? Is it making it harder? Is it, what's your assessment of that?
Well, I think actually overall we're, excuse me, we're improving the way we're being able to produce more with less ground, because as you know, you and I have talked about this, farmland is under pressure from development, population is growing. Builders want to build on the best agricultural land, solar farms for alternative energy. They want to build on the easiest place to build, and that's the most tillable acreage. And the farmer who wants to get the maximum return for his acre, and if he gets more from solar and some private property rights, he's going to go ahead and lease his property to a solar farm. And that takes that out of production. The Department of Agriculture can do about those type of things. But what we can do is we can talk about the importance of local agriculture, the farmers markets, and making that a little bit more self-sustaining. Sometimes I tell people when I go to things, if you've ever bought a head of lettuce at a grocery store and threw it away because you didn't get to finish it, and maybe if you went and it was 2 weeks old, probably by the time you got it, maybe if you bought it fresh, picked the day before by a local farmer and you got to finish, maybe you didn't pay too much. Because the biggest complaint I hear is it costs more at the farmer's market. But if you're getting more nutrition and you're getting something that'll last in your refrigerator longer, you're probably not paying too much. And you're supporting the local economy, which is supporting you, the citizen, as well. So that's another side note. I digressed a little bit on you there, Nate, but we, everything is so intertwined,
It is.
This is not a simple black and white business. It's, there's so many variables. So what we try to do at the Department of Ag is make sure the regulations are understandable and they know, and we've transformed the department from a heavy-handed regulatory agency to an educate before regulate. We want to educate the farmer. We want to bring them into compliance to make sure. You brought up the FSMA, and some farmers don't like the FSMA, but look at the grocery side. The grocery FSMA didn't come out of the agriculturalists thinking of this. This is the businesses saying, we want to ensure that the product in the grocery store, when Nate Cain goes and buys it, is safe. And that's why those regulations came into place. The tracing of the animal ID or the trace back of a disease. So everybody remembers the romaine lettuce outbreaks. If we can trace the sickness back to the one farm, then we only have to remove the romaine lettuce from the farm, from the grocery stores that bought from that supply chain. If we don't know where it came from, then the order goes out from the health department, all romaine lettuce comes off. And then that doesn't hurt those small grocers and the other businesses. That actually hurts everybody and increases the cost to the consumer. So there's reasons for these regulations. They just have to be applied judiciously and explain to people.
Kent, I got to cut to a break to give a word to our sponsors, and when we get back from that, I want to get into more of the regulatory side of things, and some of these new rulings that have happened in the Supreme Court with Chevron deference and that sort of thing. So hang on with me, and folks, hang on. We'll be right back, and we'll be talking about even some more interesting and exciting things.
Not believe, no detergent, no hot water, no fabric softener. Not
Sounds
even
good.
threw away all the chemicals to clean your home. I don't need to buy sprays to cut through grease. I don't need to buy window cleaners. I don't need to buy carpet shampoo. I don't need to buy things to mop my floor. I don't need to buy things to take pesticide off my vegetables, fruits, and fish. Oh my gosh, where did this come from? I'll tell you where it came from. It came from hospitals. This is actually a photo of a huge commercial hospital laundry technology that cost in excess of $100,000 if you bought that whole thing, and it'll fill up your garage. That's how big it is. And what we've done with the advent of microelectronic technology, my team and I constantly use microtechnology just like your smartphone. The new EcoWasher SE is a chemical-free laundry and cleaning solution. Imagine, no more detergent, no more chemicals, saves you money, pays for itself, gives you a healthier life, and simplifies doing laundry. And now we're going to include 2 free ThunderPure Safe Air Minis that purifies your home and sanitizes your surfaces like a thunderstorm in nature. Eliminates all odors. Plus, you're receiving $100 off by using code podcast on the new EcoWasher SE. Let me remind you, 2 free ThunderPure Safe Air Minis plus $100 off during this podcast. Podcast is your coupon code at Eco.
Military use when they need unlimited power during critical missions. Civilians like you can now get their hands on the exact same technology within 24 hours for pennies on the dollar. Folks, as a former infantry soldier, I can tell you this is the best and cheapest way to get reliable, unlimited energy. And no, I'm not talking about regular generators or the expensive solar panels. You don't have to be an electrician to do it. There's no maintenance needed. It doesn't take up a lot of space. And the best part, you won't need to rely on the power grid anymore. Click below now and hit play.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
We're back. This is the Raising Cain Show, and we have our guest, Kent Leonhardt, the West Virginia Agriculture Commissioner. And so, Kent, before we went to break, we were talking about the Food Safety Modernization Act, and you were talking about it's shifted from a reactive to a preventative, stance in food safety. What are some of the more controversial impacts, if you will, on particularly small farms and food producers? Because you mentioned about how it benefits the commercial side of things, or I should say the retail side of things, the grocery stores and that sort of thing. But have you heard complaints from farmers and cattlemen and whatnot?
No, the only time I heard complaints was on the campaign trail by opponents. Because if the Food Safety Modernization Act, if you sell less than $20,000 a year, you're not wholesale of product, you're not subject to the Food Safety Modernization Act. So the local farmers market, most of the folks that are selling at farmers markets, they're not affected by the Food Safety Modernization. This is more the big long row crop farms that are selling the broccoli that they harvest on a regular basis to the grocery stores and the big supply chains and those big supply houses. On the slaughter side, we changed from 1,000 birds a year on farm slaughter to 20,000 chickens and rabbits can be slaughtered, and you're not subject to the inspection.
Okay. One question I had for you is, these inspections and these rules and regulations, how does that work for products that we import from other countries like Mexico? A lot of our, crops, especially, the ones that are require warmer weather, might be grown down there and then shipped up here. And it seems like oftentimes when we've had issues with, I remember there was an outbreak of E. coli This was some years ago, and it was due to green onions that were being imported from Mexico. Now this was before the FSMA had come into play. So does this impact imported goods as well, or is this just for our farmers here in the U.S.? Oh, it looks like I may have lost my connection to Kent. Hopefully we'll get him back here soon. So there's one of the concerns that I have in terms of being able to ensure that we have fair trade. Ken had mentioned about the Chinese dumping Apple products and things like that. So Ken, it looks like you're back on. I don't know if you heard everything that I was mentioning, but I was asking about foreign goods that we import. So agricultural goods that we import into the United States. Are they required to meet the same industry standards that our farmers have to meet here?
We've had some discussions with some of the more
Sorry, go ahead. I had to add you back. I just realized you weren't on.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Ken. So I was asking about whether or not.
Yes, they're required to meet the same standards. But the question is, are the inspectors always making sure they meet those standards? That's a concern that some of us and my fellow commissioners of agriculture, particularly those of us that are elected, have had discussions on. A lot of the imported food, are they really being held to the same standards that they're supposed to be held to the same standards?
Right.
My recommendation is to everybody, make sure it's a product of USA when they buy it.
Mm-hmm. On that note, that's a good reason for people to go to farmers markets as often as possible for fresh fruits and vegetables, because you're going to get stuff that is from a local farmer. On that note, Kent, for folks that want to do this, for folks that want to buy their meat,
and also to read the packages when you go to the grocery store.
When people want to buy their products from a farmer's market, or they want to buy their beef and pork and meats from a local farmer. Oh, I lost him again. Shoot. We'll ask him when he gets back on here, but I want to find out if there's a place for those that are listening that are from West Virginia, if there's a place where they can go to actually, like, some sort of registry or listing of local farmers markets and local farmers. Let me hear. He's coming back on, so I'm going to add him back here shortly. So, Kent, I was just asking if there is a registry somewhere listed on the Department of Agriculture's website where you can find out where local farmers markets might be, and where local farmers markets might be, and or where local farmers that will sell meat products, or eggs directly to the consumer. Is there a way to find that out? I mean, I live out in the country, so I can kind of find these places, but what about somebody in, say, Martinsburg? How would they find out?
Yeah, if they go to the West Department of Agriculture website, which you gave earlier for the market bulletin, we have a West Virginia Grown program. We've got, getting close to 500. We've revitalized that program. It was like sitting dead in the water when I took office. And we're getting more and more vendors that are having the West Virginia Grown seal on there. There's also, if you go to Facebook, Department of Ag will list some of the agritourism things going on. We'll list some of the farmers markets. You can go to the Farmers Market Association website and find farmers markets there. We work very closely with them. We work very closely with the Food and Farm Coalition. We've got a lot of great partners all over the state that are working to improve the local food economy. And that's one of the things that we are really emphasizing at the Department of Agriculture is growing that local food economy. Red meat production is up over 52% because we brought more abattoirs on and more people are finishing grass-fed or slightly grain-fed animals on their own farm and raising them to full size and taking them to the selling them to the butcher shop or to the individual that goes under what we call custom slaughter. So the inspections aren't nearly the same for the custom slaughters. We've done a lot of those things and improved those type of local economies. So we're very proud of what we've accomplished. Actual retail sales of wholesale sales to retail markets in West Virginia are up 52% in produce world. And we've got more young farmers coming online too. Our FFA numbers, I'd like to put a shout out to FFA and 4-H, great programs for the youth of our state. And FFA is hitting record numbers in West Virginia right now.
You know, I want to just comment on that because, again, you know, I grew up in the city. I did not grow up in a rural area. And so when we moved out here and I decided to run for office, that's when I really got out into a lot of the rural areas. And somebody had invited me to an FFA. I think we're having a competition. And this was somewhere out there in Wood County. And I was amazed at just these young kids, like kids that look like they're maybe, you know, 8 or 9 years old, and they're walking around with a pig that's, you know, twice their size, and they've got it completely, you know, tamed and you know, obeying them and moving them, you know, and showing. They were doing like you know, showing it off for auction. And so these kids were being taught you know, discipline. They were, you know, being taught how to raise an animal from the, you know, the day that they get it, you know, all the way up into production or until it's sold. And it was fascinating to me because you don't see enough of that today in America. It seems like, and you know, what you had out there is you had a field full of trailers, you know, and you know, RVs where parents and grandparents had come out to support the kids. It was like nothing I've ever seen before. And I was amazed. And it felt wholesome. You know, I mean, too often, you know, we see kids that are, you know, getting involved in things they shouldn't be involved in, but all of these kids were well behaved. They were all showing responsibility and personal responsibility. They were showing, you know, maturity and even from, you know, a young age. And I just thought it was such a great program. And so I was really glad to see that. And I think, honestly, we need more of those types of programs, especially I think for, you know, for some of our areas that maybe are more urban or, you know, more in the city. We need to get those kids out of the city and get them out into the country, you know, to see what country living's like, because I'll tell you, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And like I said, those programs don't fall under the Department of Agriculture, but we obviously support them. Cedar Lakes Conference Center is the home of the FFA for the summer, for their summer conference, and they elect their new officers statewide at that one. That was just held last week. I got to address them. You know, we do everything we can to support our youth in agriculture. Not everybody that goes into these programs are going to go into agriculture or food manufacturing or food processing or food distribution or anything in agriculture, but they're all going to be educated consumers. And that's so very important, that the consumer is educated on what agriculture does in the state of West Virginia, where your food comes from, how it's produced. And so you can make an informed choice on not only who you're voting for in that realm, but also you can make an informed choice as to where you're going to source what you're going to eat for dinner that night.
Kent, due to some of the technical difficulties that we were having earlier on, we're a little bit behind in some of the things I still want to talk about. Are you okay to stay on for maybe another 30 minutes so we can get to some of those?
Yeah, we can, or I can come back again if you want. There's so much to do.
I think there's I think we could probably get through them in the next 30 minutes. A couple of things that I want to cover. So
Okay.
there's the Chevron deference doctrine. Now, it sounds to me like the Food Safety Modernization Act isn't really a problem. Like that's actually something that's been a good thing. But I remember when we were talking, you and me personally, there were some other issues with regards to the beef being able to be sold outside of West Virginia and things like that.
Right.
This Chevron deference doctrine gives us really an opportunity, I think, to challenge some of these federal regulations that maybe aren't good. Is there anything on the horizon right now that the Department of Agriculture for West Virginia is looking at as possible federal regulations that we might be challenging in the future here?
Well, yeah, some of those are, and that's a great point. When legislation is passed in the state of West Virginia, sometimes they give the agency rulemaking authority, and then the agency writes those rules, and they go back in West Virginia, go back to the legislature, and the legislature has to approve the rules. At the federal government level, doesn't happen. They give rulemaking authority to the EPA or the FDA, and all they have to do is put it out for public comment. They don't even have to accept the public comment. So so sometimes, and the Chevron doctrine now is going to give people a better opportunity, and industries, not just agriculture, but all industries, a better chance to look back and say, hey, federal government, you're overstepping your bounds. We need to take a better look at this, whether it's, the technologies that we need to produce more power or to produce more food. I think all those things are going to change. I'm continuing to fight and for that. If I have a state meat inspection plant that meets or exceeds federal standards, then if my citizens can eat it, then a Virginia can eat it, and a Pennsylvania can eat it. But the federal government's preventing us from selling and expanding our business.
Yeah. So your audio cut out a little bit there, but looks like you might be lagging. If you cut your video feed, that might help a little bit. I want to get into something else, and I know we've talked about this before. I know it's a little bit of a controversial subject, and I think at the time that I brought it up, it was mainly a concern that some people were bringing up to me, but it was not a something that was yet out, and that is mRNA vaccines, particularly for livestock. Kent, are you with me? You're lagging. Folks, he'll be right back. I'm going to bring up this article because I want to go over it with folks while Kent's coming back in. And let me see here. Give me a minute. I'm going to bring up this article that popped up recently, and I thought this was interesting because it came out. I just heard about it last month, and this is let's see here. Let's see. Give me 1 minute. All right, so this is the article right here. And it's the headline is "Scientists are testing mRNA vaccines to protect cows and people against bird flu." Now, I personally do not want to take any product that has mRNA. And I think one of the problems with headlines like this is they use the term mRNA vaccines when in fact these are not traditional vaccines. There's been plenty of research, and if you guys have followed my show, Just last week, I think it was on Thursday or it might have been Saturday, I had on a doctor, Chris Claggett, who is a doctor who's a specialist in diseases and preventative medicine, and he's done a lot of research into this, he's done a lot of reading of the research that has been done on these mRNA vaccines. And the fact is that we know now that the mRNA vaccine, especially the ones that that alter the RNA of the cells and actually cause a production of spike protein, that they do irreparable damage, to people and to their hearts and to their health. And so my concern is that if there is any kind of regulation that comes out that says you're going to be forced to do these sorts of things, number one, I think it's going to put at great risk our entire food supply, because we're already seeing young people, healthy people, dropping dead due to mRNA gene therapy, which is really what it is, altering the genes and making, basically causing folks to have an inflammatory reaction with their heart and other organs. But the other thing is my concern is that if they give these things to the food, to the cattle that we're eating, are we going to be consuming, basically spike proteins? I don't know. But I have major concerns about that. And at a minimum, I want to see regulation at the state level, preferably even at the federal level, that says you have to label for these things. That's something that I'm hoping for. So if we can get Kent back on, I intend to ask him about that. I don't know if he's going to be able to come back on. We've had some pretty bad weather, and it's been hitting. I think that's what's going on with him. But we talked about this before, and it wasn't really an issue at that time because there was concerns about it. But at the time, there weren't articles where they were actually doing legitimate testing. And in this case, it looks like they're concerned about the bird flu outbreak, that they're starting to do mRNA vaccines or mRNA gene therapy involving the flu, bird flu, also, akin to the COVID-19 shots. And so they're saying that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services are the ones that are taking on this responsibility with the manufacturings. But are they going to try to force this, down the FDA's, force this through the FDA? Is the FDA going to try to force this down to the states? I don't know. But this is something that we should be reaching out to both our state and our federal legislators to demand that we don't want this. If some farmer wants to do this, fine. But I think we have to be able to protect our food supply. There's evidence that the mRNA vaccines, particularly those that create spike proteins, that those spike proteins have caused an impact to fertility. And we don't want to see, our food supply and our food supply chain get to the point where, we're not seeing, a proper reproduction of our animals. And also, we don't want these byproducts affecting us, in our health. So I think that it's fair to ask for these products to be labeled. It's the same thing that we did with the GMO. We first came out with GMOs. Hold on a second here. Kent is back on, so I'm going to bring him back on here.
I'm back.
Hey, Kent. So I've got up here an article, and you and we had talked about this briefly. At the time, there wasn't really a whole lot of talk about it publicly, but this article came out last month on the AP, and it's talking about scientists are testing mRNA vaccines, which they're not really vaccines. They're traditional vaccines. These are gene therapy to protect cows and people against bird flu. So my concern has always been that just like we had with the GMOs, when they first started doing GMOs, you had people that got sick because they had an adverse reaction to it, and there was no labeling going on. But eventually, they got around to, federal regulations that say, hey, you have to label these products as having bioengineered products, right? And now pretty much you can pull up anything that you look at. In fact, I was noticing that just about every soup can in my in my pantry, you look on the back and it says this product contains bioengineered products. So I don't like that. And I don't trust these mRNA vaccines that are, modifying, the RNA of human beings, let alone our food supply. One of the major concerns, I had a guy on he was basically the Navy's equivalent of a CDC director of public health. And his name is Chris Claggett. He actually lives here in West Virginia, in Hedgesville. And he's done a lot of looking into the research. He's a scientist and a doctor and understands this stuff quite well. But his major concern with mRNA vaccines or mRNA gene therapy is that the potential for it to disrupt the immune systems, the normal healthy immune system of a human being, it can be quite damaging. For older folks or people that are at high risk, that may be a risk worth taking for them. But for young people, for healthy people, there's absolutely no reason for them to, take these mRNA shots. And in fact, it's led me to wonder, because there's specifically something that has to do with the what's called IgG, which is the immunoglobulin something or other. But it has to do with it causing a phase shift when they give these constant booster shots and all of that. And it can actually cause, further disease later on in the body's inability to counter it with its own immune system. So my concern is if they start, if there becomes a demand at some point in time by the federal government to push this down to our food chain, our food supply chain. My concern is that this could lead to, even further or far greater immunocompromised animals, farm animals, and that you'll have to either continually give them boosters every year, or worse, if it creates spike proteins like the COVID vaccine did, you may be consuming things that actually could cause harm. So, I know this is a fairly new thing. It just came out. Like I said, this is, I think it's Penn State right now is doing this. They're doing some of this stuff. I would like to know and feel the comfort of knowing that, that our agriculture department will push back on this, that the feds try to push this down to say, hey, look, we don't want this coming down, number one, and being forced upon our farmers. Number two, I would like to know that at a minimum that they're going to require labeling, hopefully at the federal level. But if they don't do it at the federal level, I'd like to see that at the state level, because I do have concerns about this. Have you looked into this at all? Or are you hearing anything in your, in your conversations with other agriculture commissioners? Kent, are you there? I'm not losing Kent here. I don't know if I've got him on. So it looks like I'm getting the circle of death there. So I may not be able to, well, hopefully he'll be able to come back on. But in the meantime, folks, this is something to be concerned with. I do think that it's something. Oh, there you are. Kent, did you hear what I was saying there?
Yes. And I hope you heard that I was saying, as this is again, like you mentioned, it's all very new. And I hope that the research that they're doing is better than what they did with the COVID-19 vaccines. That's number one. Yes, we've had discussions with others. And again, I'm going to go back to know your farmer, know your food. A lot of times the federal government will put these mandates on. And if the state will take the dollars, then that's up to the governor. They got to comply with these things. And they use that leverage all the time. I'm hoping that they don't do it with this type of activity, because our food supply is so very important. And
Yeah,
we've pushed back on other things, such as, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that my concern is that the two main companies that are involved in this are Moderna and Pfizer. So obviously Moderna and Pfizer have seen a massive drop off of people going and getting the booster shot. So now they're looking for another way to make money. And so I do have major concerns about this. I don't trust mRNA technology for for vaccines at all. There's just too many things, including the fact that they got to use nanolipid particles that are highly toxic. This was something that was explained to me by Dr. Chris Claggett. The way that the mRNA is inserted, or the RNA is basically inserted into these cells, is they got to encase it around. They have to encase it with these nanolipid particles, because the body's own immune system would destroy that foreign RNA. But in order for those nanolipid particles to attach to the cell, they have to be highly polarized, or highly charged, I guess, so that they will stick to the cells. And the problem is that the materials that are needed for that also happen to be extremely cytotoxic, meaning they damage blood vessels, they damage cellular tissue and things like that. So I see this as a potential dangerous thing for human consumption, and I don't trust Pfizer or Moderna at all. So, but anyhow, on another subject that I wanted to cover with you is there's been all this talk about the avian flu and all of that, and it jumping to cattle and whatnot. What's going on right now with regards to that in West Virginia? How are we doing in suppressing that or keeping that at bay?
Well, like I said, we've only had one backyard flock affected by avian influenza. We have not had any of the dairy cows. The dairy cows all trace back to one farm in Texas, where they're raising the replacement heifers while they're on a liquid diet before they get to they're totally off mother's milk. Businessmen have decided and figured out that it's cheaper to ship day-old dairy calves to this one farm, let them raise them, and the farmer doesn't have to worry about them while he's milking his cows, and then they come back to his farm later on when they get ready to go into production, bred and then put into production. That's a business decision that they're making. Unfortunately, it has caused, as with any massive, large number of animals, they've had some health issues there. These are very simple viruses. They can mutate, like COVID mutated. So we're constantly watching. This is all part of what I talked about early on the foreign animal disease world and our emergency action plans. If we get it in a poultry house, we're going to have to depopulate quickly to keep it contained. We've had all our neighboring states have had it in commercial flocks. West Virginia is one of two states in the lower 48 that has not. Louisiana and West Virginia have been spared that at this point in time. So we continue to emphasize biosecurity. We continue to ask our farmers if they suspect anything, get hold of us. We go out and we take samples, swabs from the poultry, and we test to make sure it's not avian influenza. We've done, hundreds of thousands of tests. Again, the importance of the laboratory system that we have to keep our food supply safe. And we're protecting not just the commercial birds, but we're also protecting the small scale farmer that's selling eggs at the farmer's market as well. So it doesn't matter what size operation you are, the Department of Agriculture is working to help protect those individuals. That's why bees are registered, so that if foul brood breaks out in one, we can go notify the neighboring beekeepers, and we can be on the watch so it doesn't spread. There's a lot of beekeeping. Beehive registration is free. Some people don't like the idea of registering with the government, but if we have a beehive die of foul brood, I think the neighbors would want to know that it's happening so that we can help make sure it doesn't spread. Those are the type of things that we work on.
That's great. So we're wrapping this up here, and I wanted to ask. We talked a little bit about young people getting involved, and a lot of that is done through FFA, and through the 4-H club. But for somebody like my age, eventually I'm going to retire, and maybe I've always had the dream of owning like a small family farm. If I wanted to get into something without having any background, without having grown up and being raised on a farm, but I wanted to, say, get into something that I can make a little extra income on the side and have that experience of, having that experience of living in the country and having some sort of crop or some sort of animal that I was raising. How does somebody who doesn't know about these things even learn about this or get involved? I mean, what's the best way for somebody to enter? And the second question that's related to it is, probably better than anybody else in this state where the needs are, right? Because if you got too many people producing one product, it's going to drive the price of it down. But maybe there's something that's in demand that there's just not enough people in West Virginia producing. So the first question is how does somebody get involved? Who's maybe wanting a career change, or somebody that's, having a change in their life and they want to move to the country and do something different. And then secondly, what are the products or what are the types of produce or animals or livestock that are in demand right now that we don't have enough people, doing?
Well, first off, there's a lot of great resources out there. You can call the Department of Agriculture and Business Development, and we have planning coordinators that are actually out in the field that will actually help people and have discussions with them. What the WVU and state extension services, that's their primary job, is to teach agriculture to folks that are interested in it. So those are great resources as well. And then you have the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service that have a lot of programs with cost share that can help you build some fencing, fertilize fields that maybe have been mistreated. And then we advertise and we work closely with our institutes of higher learning on various conferences. We have an Appalachian grazing conference every so often, small farms conference that we coordinate. That comes out of WVU extension, but we coordinate with them on and partner with them putting those conferences on. So we have these seminars, and then there's a farmsteading series that you can find on our website that we've done a number of those things. So there's a lot of great resources out there. As far as the markets are concerned, that varies by region of the state. Particularly if you're talking a farmer's market and a local food economy, in the Eastern Panhandle, there's an awful lot of apples and peaches. You go to other parts of the state, that may be a shortage, but they may not grow as well in that other part of the state as they do there. Peppers go great up in Mineral County, but peppers will grow all over in the high tunnels. So visit the markets, see what the people are asking for, and just talk to the folks in the markets. Even the customers that are buying, what do you need? What are you looking for? They'll tell you. It's a great way to socialize with folks, sort of like going back to the old fairs and festivals. And then go to your fairs and festivals and talk to people and get to know the local farmers. They'll tell you what they're doing. Farmers are very good about sharing information. When I got started on our farm, my neighbors were very forthcoming. Now, some of them were a little bit older and doing a little bit of older school things, so I had to go out and look for some of the more modern type of things. But it's out there. Just go out there and talk to the markets, talk to the farmers, talk to the people. They'll tell you what you need to know.
I noticed in the June issue of the Bulletin, there was an article about hemp product safety in West Virginia. And actually, when I was out traveling around, I had met a couple of farmers that were growing hemp. They did tomatoes during certain seasons, and hemp, I don't know if they had other fields or whatever, but one of the farmers was telling me that they raised the registration fee. I guess there's like an extra fee you have to pay to grow hemp. And this is, hemp that's being used for, production of like CBD oil and that sort of thing. He was very, upset about them raising these fees because it was done without any kind of reason at all. What can you tell us about the hemp industry here in West Virginia? What's going on with that?
Well, the hemp hemp is an interesting case study. Everybody jumped on the bandwagon at first, thinking there was going to be a great market. And they talked about, going back to rope and the fabric and everything else. But everybody started growing the hemp for the CBD oil. And then the market turned out to be, there's a market for it, and there's a good market for it, but the market wasn't as large as everybody that was jumping in. As far as raising the fees, we haven't raised the fees since I've been in office, on the actual growing of the hemp. Now, hemp product fees were added recently. It's a separate fee for the actual products themselves. And those were done because the hemp products, the state's requiring the Department of Agriculture, and this is not something Kent Leonhardt put on. This was a bill that was passed by the legislature, and the fees, all fees, like I said, we talked earlier on the Chevron, any rules and stuff have to go back to the legislature for approval. But you have to cover the cost of testing and making sure the products are safe. We had a lot of folks out there in the last campaign talking about kids getting into illegal products, coming into these hemp stores selling illegal products. So the Department of Agriculture had to hire resources to go out. And we're actually finding a lot of people that are selling basically marijuana, not hemp. And prosecutors are prosecuting them.
Well, it's interesting. Of course, the DEA is right now in the process of reviewing and changing the schedule for marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 3. So it's going to be interesting to see how these things are going to impact, because obviously there's states like California and others that have completely legalized it. You've got other states that have created a medical marijuana industry, which, at some point, there's going to be states that are going to make decisions to do this and tax the heck out of it. So that'll be an interesting thing to follow. But you're right, the CBD industry in and of itself, I imagine you would need to regulate, because you have to test to know what the product's got in it, and what other constituent chemicals are in there. I have a couple of questions from. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say that's right. I mean, a lot of it's consumer protection, and if you're in business, you want that protection because you want to be able to say my product's safe and tested by the Department of Agriculture. That product over there is not.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, or one question here from one of my listeners, Harry Legg. He's got a funny name. He has a question up here. What is appeal treated on produce? So APEEL. Do you know about that product? I've never heard of it.
I'm not familiar with it.
Harry, if you have a chance to put something in the comment, if you know what this is an opportunity. I know you're here in West Virginia, so it's an opportunity to share this information. I think it might be, and I might be wrong on this, but I think it might be some sort of chemical that washes the chemicals off of fruit. If I'm not mistaken, but I don't know for sure. So Harry, if you are listening still, please, type in there if you know any more information on that. Oh, He says it's a sticker.
And people can always ask. People can ask these questions on the Department of Ag's page, and we'll try to get answers back to people and to see if we're involved with that at all or not, too.
Okay, so he said there's a sticker put on each produce. So it apparently says this product has been treated on the produce. So there's like a sticker. So I don't know. So that would be Harry. You heard what he said. He said you can go there and you can request submit questions on there, and they'll get back to you on that. Well, Kent, you've been gracious with your time, and I appreciate it. I know we had some technical difficulties here with the weather and everything, but
Country living.
Yes, and I'm very grateful. I met you at a prayer breakfast. I think it was the first time that we met there in Charleston, and we kind of became friends over the last year and a half, and have talked a lot about these different issues. You've really educated me about a lot of the things that that the Department of Agriculture does here in West Virginia, and I appreciate the work that you do, and of course your service to your country, not only as a Marine, Semper Fi, but also, as a, fellow West Virginian and somebody who's continuing to serve your community and your state. So I want to thank you for that. I always like to give my guests the final word. If there's anything that you want want the listeners, we've got we got over 1,000 listeners right now that are live listening to the show.
Awesome.
And so this is your opportunity to share with them. If there's one thing that you want them to take away from this conversation, please share that with our listeners. And then I always like to close in prayer, and then I'll cut to the kind of the end of the show. So the final word is yours.
Well, I'll keep it really simple. Your Department of Agriculture touches the life of every West Virginian every day, and most people don't really know we exist. So this opportunity to get on here and discuss with your viewers, I certainly do appreciate it, Nate. And yes, over the year and a half or so, we've become very good friends, and we have a lot of respect for each other and the work that we're doing. And I appreciate that you trying to continue that work, even though you didn't win your election, but you're still out there trying to educate the public. And that's what we try to do at the Department of Agriculture, is to educate the public on what is really good for them and what's not good for them. And we try to make sure that people are eating from a safe and abundant food supply. Used to like to say affordable, but the way the inputs have been going and the inflation's been happening in the recent years, it's not quite as affordable as it once was. But we're still better than 1863, when our state was founded, when 70% of the average family's budget went to feeding the family. We're down in probably the 20-25% range right now. So we're better off than 150 years ago, but we still have a room we can continue working on.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ken. I'm going to go ahead and close us in prayer and then end the show. And and we'll talk again. And I want to just leave out a standing invitation. If there's ever a time that you want to get a public service announcement out, if there's something going on, within agriculture, please contact me. I have a show every Tuesday that is specifically for West Virginia issues. And so it's a great, opportunity. And like I said, we got over 1,000 people listening right now. So, I appreciate, like I said, all that you do. And I'm going to go ahead and close this in prayer. Lord, I thank you, God, for this opportunity for us to learn about agriculture in West Virginia and obviously other states too, Lord. And I pray that you would bless our agriculture, bring us rain, bring us the right kind of rain that will help the farmers, Lord. We pray that you would, help us to gain trade policies that are beneficial to our farmers and that help us to be able to sustain, good, family farming. And Lord, we pray that you would bless, our public officials, Lord, and Kent for the work that he's doing and help him to serve us well. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yep.
Raise some cane. You gotta raise some cane. in the heartland where the faith runs strong. We've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.